Purusha ye vedam vishwam karma tapo brahma paramritam. Etadyo veda nihitam guhayam. So vidya grantim vikirati ha somya. Purusha ye vedam vishwam karma tapo brahma paramritam. Etadyo veda nihitam guhayam. So vidya granthim vikirati ha somya. The concluding verse of part 1, or rather section 1, it is section 1, chapter 2, it's the concluding verse. So here he says the Purusha. The Purusha always means the supreme being. Opposed to Purusha is Prakriti, which means matter. But here he says the Purusha being alone is the alone in the universe. It's alone in the universe, in this universe. There has to be a small change, alone in the universe, okay? The Purusha being alone in this universe, karma, which is activity, and tapa, austerity. The Brahman reality is the supreme immortal. He who knows this as seated in the cavity of the heart, he destroys here the knot of ignorance, O handsome one. Somyaha vikarati, avidya granthim vikarati. Vikarati means you rends asunder, you destroy what? Avidya granthim, the knot of ignorance. So it's simple. If you put it in simple words, what he's saying is from Brahman has emerged the universe. From Brahman has emerged karma. From Brahman has emerged austerity. So from Brahman has emerged the universe, karma, and austerity. So the capacity, the austerity is, what is austerity? What is tapas? See, from Brahman has come the universe, understandable. In the universe, there are various karmas, which are actions, understandable. Then why does he say austerity? Tapo, Brahma, Purusha, Evedam, Vishwam, Karma, Tapah. From this alone is the universe, karma, and tapa. Tapa is for what? Why does he say tapa in the context along with action? See, we need to question. There's a logic behind it. That's all we are doing. The reason he says tapa along with activity, tapaha is to control activities. What is tapa? Tapa is to withdraw from unhealthy, unnecessary activities which are dissipation, which build attachment. Isn't it? So if there is no tapa, there is no control over the performance of action. You are getting into actions which creates bondage, which creates, as he says, the knots of ignorance. He destroys the knot of ignorance. He who knows this, which is the Brahman that is immortal. Now, let's put it in simple terms. First, he says, from Brahman has emerged universe, karma, austerity. First point, he says that. The second point we are saying is why he says austerity is, if there is no austerity, you merely keep performing actions, and such actions bind you to the world. So tapa is always, it's like I'm driving a vehicle. And what is the point? You drive the vehicle, you have no control over the vehicle. So when you are learning learning to drive a vehicle, first thing you should get mastery. Not the first thing is they tell you that you get control over a vehicle. If you have no control, you are in trouble. These days I'm doing the duty of Appa, teaching Vaishnavi how to drive a two-wheeler. She's going to be 18 soon, so she needs to be self-sufficient. So she needs to be taught that art of driving. If not today obligation, I would have been in the road sitting behind as a pillar teaching how to tell her to drive. Now, the thing she's learning well, but the thing I'm constantly telling her is you must be the master of the vehicle. You must get the control. The vehicle must be under your control at all times. When you stop, how fast you go, whatever happens around you, you must have the control. The moment you lose control, you had it. Now, in the same way, in the simple way, if you perform action, what is it that brings control to the action? What is it that puts a brakes to the action? What gives fuel to the action is the vasanas, that is karma. But what is it that puts a brakes to the action? What is it that steers the action to a direction you want? It's tapas. What is tapas? Tapas is always twofold. It's conserving energy, which is being dissipated, redirecting it for better, higher purposes. These are two essential aspects of tapas. Now, are you doing tapas? Are you withdrawing from actions which are futile, which are meaningless, which are dissipation of your valuable energy? If you're not doing, you will get caught up in the knot of ignorance. That's the third point he's saying. The mantra says that one who understands the Brahman, that Brahman is immortal, he who knows this as seated in the heart, means one who understands that Brahman is the very core. He destroys here the knot of ignorance. Here means right now. You don't have to wait until you attain moksha. At any point you can attain it. So here you destroy the knot of ignorance, vikarati. You destroy it. So what are the knots of ignorance? The knots of ignorance are kama, karma. And kama and karma are arising out of avidya. So you can say knots of ignorance are avidya, kama, karma. How do you say the knot of ignorance is avidya, kama, karma? What's the logic behind it? Remember the point that we keep making, that there is Brahman, then there is ignorance of Brahman. Now, in the context, what comes when there's avidya? Where there is avidya, where there's ignorance of your, what is Brahman defined as here? Brahman is always defined as paripurna. Paripurna means your fullness, you're full, you're whole, you're complete. But the moment you do not know your fullness, you do not know your wholeness, which we do not know, relatively, all of us are in proportions. We don't know ourselves. From this comes the void. The void is a lacuna. A lacuna means an imperfection. So a void or a lacuna or an imperfection or emptiness, all one and the same. So when you feel this lacuna or emptiness or imperfection, there comes about, from this comes, Gayatri Ma, what comes out of the void or the emptiness or the lacuna?
We try to do some action.
You're missing that. There is an intermediate between lacuna and action. What comes between the two? What comes from a void are thought. And when thought manifests, it becomes desires. And from desires, you perform actions. Right, Gayatri Ma? So right from Brahman, we are only explaining the thought flow. What is the explanation here? All this explanation is for what? The explanation is for knots of ignorance. So as we said, the knot of ignorance, in fact, it is avidya, but from it's avidya, kama, karma. So we're saying these three things. So to explain these three, we are only saying this. This is the explanation. Brahman, ignorance of your paripurnata, like you and I do not know who we are. From that comes an emptiness. An emptiness creates thoughts, and thoughts creates desires. Desires produce actions. Now, tell me, how does this manifest with reference to people? With reference to people, no, with reference to, just since we're saying I'm mentioning it, when you measure spiritual evolution with reference to desires, there are two types of people. The more desires, they are called the extroverted. Less desires, They are the introverted. This is what he is trying to convey by saying not of ignorance. On the Vorovartala, one word, avidya granthim, means all this. And I'm mentioning all this, you may be familiar with the concepts, but I'm trying to say how they're all implicated. That word implicates all these things. So it conveys all these things. So because not of ignorance is avidya, from avidya comes kama and karma. So if a person is more kama, is all the time running out into the world, he is, therefore safe to say, he is I've lost, am I still there? My board is gone. I'm very depressed. I need to get my board back to join the meeting. Please wait. Yes, Setuji. I hope you can help me come out of my depression.
Hariom Guruji, how to quantify desires more and less is relative.
Huh?
How to quantify?
How to quantify? You may not be. See, it is very difficult to, as such, quantify it. But what happens in life is the quantification.
The extent of introversion will be proportional to the desires.
Yes, that's right. As the quantification drops, quality increases. So where it is the most common thumb rule in every aspect of life. Where there is quantity, there is no quality, sir. This is a thumb rule. You can apply anything, applies to spirituality as well. If you find in spiritual gatherings, if there are numbers talking in hundreds and thousands, there's no quality.
What do we mean by quality?
Quality means that which is subtler, which is superior. So for example, you find how many people, it's not the question of, say, even in all classes, I'm not saying which is right or wrong, but don't get me wrong here. You see at the material level, how many people are of a royal class? Royalty are in numbers, you can count them in any society. The affluent are far more than the royalty. Then there are the upper middle class, then the middle class, then the lower class, and then the lower middle class. If you take the proportion of people, even in the financial aspect, material aspect, you find the real elite are very few. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. This is how it is. You find the animal kingdom, any species you find, the wildebeests, the zebras, the deer are in hundreds and thousands. But you go into a forest not to see deers. You get tired after 1 hour in the jungle. If you go for a forest ride, you say, "Arey, how many deers to see? How many spotted deer with horn, without horn, with the tail, without tail? How many? End of the day, you're seeing a deer. I want to see a tiger." And the tiger is lone tiger. Even amongst the fishes, you see, there may be hundreds of other fishes, but there's a lone shark. You see birds, there are hundreds of sparrows and pigeons and other birds, but there's a lone eagle or there's a lone peacock. In any aspect of life, you see, as it goes up the pyramid, where the superiority or quality comes in, the numbers drop. So here in the spiritual field, it is the quality here's that one desire for the transcendental replaces all your mundane worldly desires, quality vis-a-vis quantity. So if my spiritual urge gets inflamed, if my spiritual urge gets charged, what happens? All the worldly passions and worldly desires will drop. I will not be charmed by the world. The world will not entice you. The world, to that extent, let's not me try to impress you in any way. I know to what extent the world has a charm for me, and that charm keeps dying away. You know it for certain. So the value for the world drops, the charm for the world drops. So when that drops, the desire to go out and rush into the world is no more. You take a step back from the world. Where are you going? You're going into the cavity of your heart. You're going into the cave of your heart, as he says. So he who is seated in that cave, what does he do? He breaks off the knot of ignorance. And what is the knot of ignorance? Kama and karma. Kama and karma is extroversion. Ones who comes close to the heart is introversion. There is no avidya. Look at the way he puts it, the choice of words, the implication of what they're conveying is sheer poetry. It's poetry to the core. You need to know how to derive that meaning out of it. It is just exquisite music. It's exquisite literature.
At the mundane basic level, can we say if someone lives within the means, is a quality is see, because once you have more desires beyond the means you live, then desires crop up, then you start working very hard to earn more, and the desires multiply. You always beyond the budget you work.
What is that quality?
It is extroverted. That is just
No. The person who is able to live within his means, what is that quality?
It is contentment. Or, can say.
No. Can you please think in the line of what we said so far? What is the first half of the verse saying? Gayatri, may I put the translation, please, once again? Please, the answer is there in the first half of the verse, sir.
Austerity.
So if a person is living within his means, what is he practicing? Austerity. If there is no austerity, there is no control, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we already mentioned. So a person who has control over his actions, that capacity you have, that's when you lead yourself to the cave. If there is no austerity, finished, gone. You go out into the world. You are creating the world as a platform to satisfy your senses, to feed your senses. You want food for your tongue, you want sight for your eyes, you want taste, touch for your skin, smell for your nose. You are a slave to the senses. For God's sake, don't be a slave, man. Enjoy your senses, but don't be a slave to them.
Today, the social media, print, everywhere, people are flooded with offers, and everyone has got multiple credit cards, and people want to buy many things even before they start earning, and they get into the trap, and then they go on. They are in that vicious circle. They buy things which they don't require.
This is the effect of avidya. This is avidya. In spiritual sense, one who falls a prey to the desire kama is avidya. Because where there is jnanam, knowledge, there is you don't fall a prey to desire. To that extent, it is burnt off.
Actually, I have come across some people who are in Vidya, even with little means, they feel very rich. They have money to spare for good activities. They are the donors, even with little means, because they very satisfied and live a simple life. And on the other hand, people who earn millions, they want more and more, and they don't want to part.
Sir, you must have the eyes to see, as what you're saying. If you have an eye to see, and I know you have an eye to see, you can identify such people. It only means, as they say, birds of same feather flock together, no? Isn't that a saying? So you must be one to identify one. You must have the eyes to see, as the Gita, he says, Ya pashyati sapashyati. He amongst you sees it, sees it. Now, as I'm saying this, do you see it? Do you have it in you to see it? Are you living that kind of a life? You know, if I am constantly, if I believe my life's purpose is to create pastures for my desires, I am an extroverted person. Am I creating pastures for my desires to be fed and met and indulge in them? You are non-spiritual. You are caught up in avidya.
So in other words, Guruji, those who he may be earning very little, but he lives within means and he parts for good, he is the rich. And whereas the man who is super rich in terms of wealth, but who is having more and more desires, he is poor. Because he is always craving for more and more.
Absolutely. I wish the world hears this. So, rightfully, sir, what you said, absolutely. You're roaring the truth of what Vedanta has declared. So, the seeker has to live a life of austerity to break this knot of ignorance. That is the key. That's the point. The ignorance of Brahman creates this karma and karma. It is austerity that breaks the karma and karma. Austerity that breaks avidya. And one who does so, he discovers the self in the cavity of the heart, in the core of your personality. So what is the barrier? Is your own desire, your own action, is our ability, is a lack of control over your own self. Sage Angiras, who is the guru of the text, he is answering the student who is Shaunaka. Shaunaka asked the question in the third mantra, chapter 1, section 1. He asks, "So adorable sir, what having known does all this become known? What should I know to know the self?" And here he answers the question. He who knows the self through austerity, you will break the knot of ignorance. The question was asked there, the Guru answers here. I know, as you have conveniently forgotten the question, when we move to the next part, you will also conveniently forget the answer also. Never mind. I am there to repeat the question and repeat the answer. Repeatedly, I'll repeat what to do. That is my job. But if you follow the thought flow, you find the answer is given here. It's a fascinating answer. It's a beautiful, this, there is a connect when you don't explain it. When you explain it, you dilute it and spoil it. I tell you, you should not explain these things. And Upanishad is something which should not be diluted. It has to be felt in its own purest concentrated form by mere implication, that you relate to the idea, and that's what it is sheer excitement. To be frank with you, I'm so excited just to to be able to relate to what the master is saying. The concepts are familiar. No, that is not the point, but the choice of words, the way he puts it, what is implicated, that is real fun. Okay, Naresh, you're following? Move on.